Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our pre-trip webinar for our French Polynesian Tahiti trip. We're going to get started in about a minute's time. It's just turned 11 o'clock now, and I expect a few more of our members to attend. So we're going to give them 1 or 2 minutes, and then we're going to get started telling you all about how to get ready for our trip that is starting in, oh my God, less than a month's time. It's already here at long last. I'm as excited, I'm sure, as all of you. So, as I say, if you'll just hang on for a second, because I see a couple of members here, and I'm sure there'll be a few more joining us. So we'll just give it a minute or two before we get started. In any case, we are recording the webinar as we do with all of our webinars. So even if for some reason, well, if you missed it, then obviously you can't hear what I'm saying now, but you will, but you'll be able to watch the replay. So just hang tight for a second. As I say, we'll see how many more members join us, and then we'll get started in just a moment. Yes, so and this shouldn't take more than 35 minutes, and we will be on our way. So yes, French Polynesia Tahiti. Let's see where we go. Okay. All right. Hi, Dennis and Joanne. How are you guys doing? Thank you for joining us from Winnipeg. And let's see somebody else has joined us now. Hi, Linda's here as well. Thank you for joining us, Linda. Let's see. Okay. I know a bunch of the other members who have traveled with me many times before, so they're probably skipping the webinar because they already know what to prepare. So as I say, we'll just wait for another 30 seconds, so see if anybody else signs up, and otherwise we will jump right into it. Of course, if you have any questions, please have them ready, and I will address them at the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. And as I say, this shouldn't take more than about 30 minutes time. And then we'll be off to the races. So let's see. Good. Okay. Well, it's 2 minutes after 11 Eastern time. And so we will carry on. Good morning once again. Thank you for joining us. This is our pre-trip webinar for our upcoming Yachting French Polynesia and Tahiti trip. I hope you are, oh, there we go, my iPad fell over. You are as excited as I am for this trip. And that we're going to be meeting each other in Tahiti in less than a month time, 26 days, and we'll be there. So let's get started. So today we're going to introduce your host, which is of course me, and I'll give you a little bit of tips for preparing for the trip as well as your arrival in Tahiti. And I'll touch on the itinerary a little bit. I'm not going to go into great detail. I know many of you may have questions about the shore excursions, which we were literally, my team was just in touch with the ship earlier today, and they're just trying to get all the shore excursions firmed up. Most of them are already firm. There's a couple that are still pending. I'll touch on that in a minute. And then we'll answer any questions that you might have. So by way of introduction, my name's Gordon. As you may know, I know some of the members on our trip that have traveled with me before, but I don't know all of you. So you will hopefully be looking forward to meeting my smiling face when you arrive into Tahiti. And as you well know, I have been curating trips for Canadians for 33 years. So I have a lot of travel experience under my belt, and my goal for this holiday is to ensure that you have the best possible time, that you experience everything that you come to all the way to Tahiti to experience. This is going to be an adventure for me as well. Although I have facilitated this trip for many people in past years, I've never actually been on it myself. I've worked with Variety, whom are the company that operate this ship. I've worked with them for I think the better part of 20 years. So we are very familiar to one another. And yet, as I say, this particular adventure is a new one for all of us. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's get into sort of the nitty gritty in terms of what to pack. Whoops. Actually, we're going to start with documentation first of all, before we get into what to pack. Not a heck of a lot to say here. In any event, everything that I say on this webinar pretty much is included in the pre-trip documentation that you would have just been sent in the last couple of days. I think it went out. So most of the information, if not all of the information and more, is in that document. So I'm just reiterating it, also answering any questions that you have. And to the extent that you have questions that for some reason I can't answer, then I will be making sure that we get those answers to you. So as far as passport and documentation is concerned, pretty simple. As long as you know where your passport is, and as I always say before heading out on a trip, if you keep it in a safe place, don't move it. I've made that mistake somewhere where I'm like, oh, I'll just put it here so it'll be ready for me to leave, and then I can't find it because it's not where I usually keep it. So we don't want any last minute passport emergencies. But of course, there's no visas or any requirements like that. There's no COVID restrictions anymore or anything like that. So the only thing that I would say I do highly recommend is take a photocopy or a picture of your passport ID page, as well as your e-ticket for your plane, as well as anything else that you just might want to have access to if for some reason it should get lost. If you have a copy of your passport, it makes life a lot easier in case it gets lost. Of course, nothing's going to get lost. Everything's going to be fine, but I'm always a believer of preparation is good. Same thing with the e-tickets. You don't actually need an e-ticket in your hand, but when you show up at the airport and the airline's like typing away and can't find your reservation for whatever reason, at least if you've got a printed copy of it, you can sort of put it in front of them and say, here it is. But as I say, other than that, there's not really much that you need in terms of documentation. I will go back to packing though. This obviously is, we're visiting the tropics, right? And, the temperatures are going to range pretty much from the low 20s to the high 20s and even 30 degrees. So it's tropical warm. Therefore, you don't need anything for cold weather other than whatever you need when you come back to Canada in mid-November and we, God forbid, have a snowstorm or something like that. But for this trip, it's casual, it's light. I always say you never know, you can get cool sea breezes even down in the tropics in Polynesia. So, having a light jacket, some kind of a shell, a windbreaker is always a good idea. It's casual, so the whole experience on board is casual. We are obviously staying at the Intercontinental for the first few nights in Papaete. Even it is casual. I mean, this is casual. It's a beach holiday in effect, except that obviously we're doing a lot more. So the only things on that sense that would be good to remember are, I always take water shoes. And when I say water shoes, I just mean those, things with a strong sole that you wear into the water that are sort of let the water go in and out. Because sometimes if we are snorkeling on or around coral reefs, or, there could be sharp rocks in the water, water shoes are a great idea. Having shoes, having flip-flops or footwear that's sort of, easy to remove. But that being said, we're also going to be going inland into some of these islands, as you know. And so we'll be out, on some 4x4 tours and so on. So therefore, having good footwear, ideally closed toe, not essential, but, I always think if I'm trekking around in the jungle, I want to protect my feet. So that's kind of my, you could take like those Tevas that have sort of semi-open toes or something like that. But I would recommend something beyond just flip-flops for some of these excursions. You also don't want to wear anything like street shoes that you would wear at home. So at the same time, you don't need to bring 5 pairs of shoes. So I think if you have sort of some, flip-flop sandal type things, if you have some water shoes with you, and then if you have a pair of shoes that is sort of versatile that also could get wet. I mean, you never know if a thunder burst or something like some rain cell passes through, stuff could get wet. So I always think in terms of, as if you're going to be out in tropical light conditions for the whole day, the possibility of rain, the possibility of, getting your feet wet at the beach, that sort of thing. Obviously, sun protection, critical. We're going to be out. There's lots of shaded areas on the ship, but when we tender into shore, When we're out in a 4x4, again, some of them they're usually typically covered inside, but you're going to be out in the sun a lot. So a good sun hat, good sunscreen, and sunglasses and so on is really, really important. So don't sort of forget about that. We have sent water bottles to Tahiti. We've been having some problem with customs in some countries. For some reason, they don't seem to like our little water bottles. So hopefully we'll have water bottles, wheel and anchor water bottles for you when you get there. But I always believe, just in the interest of avoiding plastic, of taking a water bottle along. So just in case, if you grab one from the dollar store, you can pick stuff up in Tahiti. I mean, you can get everything there in Papeete, almost anything that you could get at home. But given where it is, stuff there is quite a bit more expensive. Not to mention that we all have the brands and the stuff that we like. So as I say, for example, a water bottle, go to this dollar store or something. If you don't already have one, pick one up, and stick it in, and in the worst cases, you can leave it behind. But it is our intention to provide water bottles if the local customs permits. Let's talk about a few other things that you want to remember. The travel adapter, the style of travel adapter is shown in the pre-trip webinar. The pre-trip information document that you need for the voltage there, I said at the beginning as well, in terms of if you do have prescription medication, take it please in your hand luggage. So don't leave it into your checked luggage in case, God forbid, something is delayed. I mean, we're obviously in Papeete for the first few days. So yes, God forbid your luggage should get delayed. We're at least there where they can reach us for the first few days. But stuff like prescriptions is not so easy to replace. And therefore, also, I recommend bringing either a paper copy or a picture on your phone of any prescriptions that you might need. If you're somebody that requires any devices close to your bed, for example, I'm not aware of anybody on this trip that uses, for example, a CPAP machine. But as I recall on this ship, the plugs are fairly close to the bed. I mean, the cabins aren't huge, so you shouldn't have too much of a problem. But a short extension cord is always handy if you have any devices that need to be plugged in and charging close to the bed. One of my tips for particularly for trips like this that involve a boat, I like to bring Ziploc bags. I typically bring like a whole box of them as a waterproof container for your camera, your phone, for any stuff that you might bring along during the day. So if you have a light day pack, so again, a day pack is a great thing to bring along so that when we're out on some of these excursions during the day, you've got a place to carry stuff along, something that's comfortable that you can ideally wear on your back so your hands are free. Like a beach bag is less than ideal because then you got like one hand carrying a beach bag. So sort of think in terms of that way. But then if you have stuff inside that you put in a Ziploc bag to stay dry, then again, this way you're avoiding that anything that you don't want to get wet in case, as I say, there's a sudden cloudburst or a splash of water over the side of the tender or something like that. So those kind of eventualities are what I recommend. Apart from that, there isn't a heck of a lot that you need for the trip. I mean, I'm personally trying to travel as light as I can for this trip so that I've only got basically summer clothes, shorts, t-shirts, swimsuits. Yeah, that's a good point as well. I always like to bring a second swimsuit because, if you're in swimming and snorkeling obviously when you come back on board, you want to change into something dry. But then if you want to go swimming again an hour or two later, it's nice to put on a dry one rather than a wet one. So something else to consider. But that's about it in terms of things to remember. Of course, if there's any questions, then let me know if you have any other ideas or questions about stuff that you should bring. But you can really travel light for this trip. In fact, you could easily travel, I think, carry-on only, given that you don't need much in Tahiti. And if you go carry-on only, then you avoid the chance of the airline using your luggage. So a few words about currency here. We highly suggest for most travels to get a Wise card. Why? A Wise card is basically a prepaid debit credit card that you load funds into and you can transfer it into other currencies at about the best exchange rates going. Now, that being said, I have to be honest with you, I'm not even sure, and I should have checked this beforehand, as to whether or not you can put the local French Polynesian currency onto whether or not it's a currency that's supported in the Wise card. Regardless, you can use it at any ATM and there's no card fees. So that's one of the big benefits of the card. If you use your regular Canadian credit card or debit card in a bank machine, your bank is going to charge you a service charge. The bank may or may not charge you a service charge. There's nothing you can do about that. But the exchange rate that Wise offers is in our opinion, and a lot of our members have adopted it, is about the best that you can get. That being said, in most of the towns and villages, and certainly Papeete and the hotel and on board the ship, you can absolutely use a credit card. You can't use American Express on board the ship, by the way. They only accept Visa and MasterCard. So in most places, credit cards are accepted. Now, when we are visiting a little village in Rangiroa or Taha or Morea or wherever it happens to be, and there's a little local market, obviously local currency is going to be required. Personally, I take it out always with my debit or credit card or my Wise card from an ATM. I don't bother trying to get currency in Canada. I don't even try to get euros in Canada because it's just a pain in the neck, and the exchange rate is usually less than favorable as far as I'm concerned. So I would, show up with some US dollars if you want, but quite honestly, I wouldn't go to the bank and make an extra trip to exchange Canadian to US. If you want to exchange cash, and I don't generally recommend it, I recommend using an ATM, but of course, most travelers feel comfortable having a little bit of cash in their pocket if for some reason something goes wrong along the way. So I leave that up to you. But as I say, for the most part, you can use credit cards in most places, and you can obtain local currency in destination. And we have obviously those first days in Papeete, and we'll at that point, once you get there and you're on the ground and you realize, oh, we'll have a conversation, we'll meet our local guide, and then you'll have a sense of how much money you actually need, and then we'll just go to an ATM and grab the cash out that we need for the trip. We also put in our pre-trip information document about communications in Telegram, and my team put together the usual pre-trip information and talking about you got to have Telegram and so on and so forth. So I'm going to actually deviate from what we've said in our written documentation. While we do use Telegram, and some of our members on this trip have already reached out to me on Telegram, for this trip, I would say it's not essential. Why? Two reasons. One, we are a small group, so there's only 11 of us plus myself that are coming along, so there's only 12 of us. And number two, when we're on the ship, we're all together all the time anyway. So it's not like we're off in different places and everybody's all over the place. There's free time, obviously, in Papeete, but there's Wi-Fi in the hotel and in most restaurants and places that you'll visit around. So in this case, I'm saying now Telegram is not crucial, because we're going to be seeing each other every evening, every morning, all throughout the day. We're going to be spending 24/7 together, except for sleeping, of course. And so I would say that Telegram is not essential for this trip. For every other trip that we do, yes, but because of the nature of this trip and the fact that we're all together, it's not critical. That being said, if you want to download it, if you like to have the ability to get in touch with me, it is the primary messaging tool that I use, not only for the members that are on trip with me, but also for our other hosts and my other members in general. So I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm just saying it's not compulsory for the purposes of this trip. Okay. Let's talk about health protocols for a second. First and foremost, our trips are non-smoking. So what does that mean if you are a smoker? What it means is, of course, you can smoke if you choose to do so, but we just ask that in the context of any excursions and any get-togethers and anything we do together as a group, if you just avoid smoking around our other members, that would be great. There will be a designated spot for those that smoke on board the ship, which as I recall, is at the aft of the ship, but they'll give us that in the orientation when we arrive. And of course, please adhere to that, because there's certainly no smoking in any interior spaces aboard the ship. It's only going to be on deck, which isn't a problem because it's tropical. It's going to be nice and warm outside for those that smoke. That being said, and there are generally not very many smokers in our group anyway, but I just say that sort of for the benefit of everybody. The only other thing I want to mention about health protocols is this. If at any point during the trip you don't feel well, particularly if you have any symptoms, if you are coughing or if you're sneezing, or even if it's something that is an allergic reaction or something that is familiar to you, of course, we all have come through this COVID era of the last couple of years, and people are a bit antsy. And we've experienced this on trips over the past year where we've had people, just start coughing and, oh no, it's just an allergy, but it makes everybody else nervous. So our request is that if you're showing signs of symptoms, please, first of all, notify me and just say, hey, I'm not feeling so well, or I've got this cough or this sneeze. And then my request will be, and my request is now, that we wear a mask if we're exhibiting symptoms. And again, this is for the benefit of everybody else in the group, not to mention the other passengers aboard the ship. We just want to be responsible, even if it is nothing to worry about. But this is the thing is that folks generally worry when those when others are sick around. So that is my request to you. So let's talk about flying to Tahiti. And of course, you all have your flight arrangements all made. And our members are arriving at all different times. Some are flying in as much as a week earlier and spending some time in Tahiti. Some are arriving the day prior. I'm arriving with most of the group on the 30th. I think I'm arriving in the morning, and some of our members are arriving later in the evening. Regardless, you will have a transfer confirmation letter that you receive from our office. If you didn't get it, please drop a note to whichever of our trip specialists you were dealing with, or to Aura, who's our sales administrator, and they'll make sure that we get you that document in the 24 hours before you go. So you're packing up, you're getting ready to go. A couple of things: pay attention to the weight of your luggage in reference to how much you're allowed to bring on the airline that you've chosen to fly on, and leave yourself a little extra room in case you want to pick up some things along the way. You don't need that much on this trip. Typically, you're allowed 23 kilos. Again, that depends on the airline. You need to check on your own ticket. You shouldn't need anywhere near that much stuff. And as I say, if anything, there'll be some souvenirs that make their way into your bag. So keep that in mind. French Polynesia is 6 hours behind Eastern Standard Time. So it's actually no more different of a time difference than, for example, traveling to Europe, which is 6 hours ahead, and this is 6 hours behind. So keeping that in mind, though, you want to avoid the jet lag. We recommend an app called timeshifter.com. Again, the link is in your pre-trip information documentation. So if you're somebody that is particularly susceptible to jet lag, you might want to consider downloading that app. It has you adjust your schedule and tells you when you can drink coffee and when you should drink coffee and when you shouldn't drink coffee in the few days before. And I find it works pretty well. So keep that in mind as a bit of a pre-trip preparation to avoid having any jet lag when you get there. Get to the airport early. Keep an eye out for any notifications for your airline of any changes to your flights, particularly changes or cancellations that will impact your the flight that you arrive on. We have on there an important email address, delays@wheelandanchor.ca. If you are going to be severely delayed, or if you're going to miss a connecting flight or something, then please do drop us an email. If the flight's half an hour late, you don't need to let us know. Our transfer company in Tahiti is going to be monitoring your flight number. And so if the flight is delayed, that's fine. But if you are not on that flight because you missed a connecting flight in Los Angeles or San Francisco, or depending on which routing that you're taking, then that is critical that you let us know as soon as possible so we can let them know you're not on the flight. That's really, really important. Be comfortable. It's a long flight, as I'm sure you know by now. So I always say flying is not a fashion show. It's rather about staying comfortable so that you can get a few winks of sleep on the flight over Tahiti. And drink lots of water, stay hydrated. That's the best way to mitigate the impact of jet lag, in my opinion. When you arrive into Tahiti, into PPT, into Papeete International Airport, You will be met by our transfer company. Again, the details are on that transfer confirmation form. And when you come out of the luggage hall, so after you picked up your bag and you arrive in there, then look for the person that will have a sign that either has the Wheel and Anchor logo on it or your name or both. We basically always advise our partners to please put the logo, the Wheel and Anchor name, and our guests' names. They don't always follow that instruction exactly. So just look out for both. If you don't see the person right away, you know how it is. You arrive in an airport and there's like signs for a million people that are, just give it some time, look around. It could be that they're just around the corner. We've had all kinds of stories where, the driver is out having a cup of coffee if there was, late or something like that. As much as we try to ensure the best possible service and that somebody is waiting there patiently for you to come out, if they're not there right away, just look around for a bit. We've given you a contact number. 99% of the time, it's we don't have any problem with our transfers, but of course it's that 1% that we can't control. In that case, again, there's a phone number there for you to ring, an info desk at the airport if you really run into a pickle, and it's not all that far from there to the Intercontinental would be staying for the first few days. So you can also send me a telegram if there's a problem. As I say, I'm arriving on the 30th, as with half of our group, and the other members of our group are arriving either the day before or a few days before. So you'll already be there ahead of us. We will then meet at the hotel. To the extent that it's possible for me to get to the airport for those members who are flying in on the 30th in the evening, I will endeavor to get there, but it just depends on logistics and what else is going on and other things that I have to take care of to make sure our trip is a huge success. So our meeting point will be at the hotel. I will reach out to those members who've already arrived by the time I get there, and I will let you know what exactly our plan is for the evening of arrival and the following day. We won't plan much. We'll have a little icebreaker. We'll see who's up for it. Some of our members aren't getting into like 9-ish, p.m. on the 30th. So we're not going to really do anything formal until the following day, when we'll have a little icebreaker and we'll make sure everybody gets to know each other. So the map, this is the map showing our routing. Of course, as you know from the message that we sent out a couple of weeks ago, the ship informed us that they had to change the routing due to local regulations and various other bureaucracy that they have to contend with in these places. So our routing has changed somewhat, as you can see here, and I'll go through that in just a minute. But we're going to be making all the stops that we plan to make, just in a slightly different order than we originally planned to do them. So as per that memo that I sent, if there were arrangements that you made locally, again, everything, the whole itinerary, because we are at sea for this whole time and our travels are subject to weather and sea conditions, please do keep that in mind, that obviously it's in all of our interests to ensure that we are at every place that we're supposed to be on the time and date that we're supposed to be there, but things can sometimes go beyond anybody's control. And so we'll, the moment we know of any changes or anything, we'll certainly let you know. So just talking about a few notes, as I say, of course, we are arriving in on the 30th. And the very first day, actually the 31st, is a free day. So on that day or the evening before, I'll send out a message and I'll let you know kind of what we're planning for the next day. I think that many of us will be in Tahiti for the first time. And so we may just want to take in the wonderful amenities that the Intercontinental has available at the hotel. That being said, I suspect I'm going to want to run into Papeete and check out town a little bit. And so in any event, we'll all meet together in the morning and we'll figure out what we can do to explore a little bit. Of course, if you have your own plans, your own ideas, you are more than welcome to do that. The first day is a free day, largely because it's a very long flight, and we wanted to make sure people have time to settle in. I mean, this is a beach holiday after all. We're here to enjoy the sun and the tropics and everything else. We are going to be staying, of course, at the Intercontinental, a beautiful resort, obviously with a lovely beach. And this is why I say it's going to be a great place to stay and enjoy the first few nights. And in preparation for our cruise, we're going to have a Polynesian night at the hotel, which is really going to give you the first taste of some of the local culture. On that first day, on the second day, so that'll be November the 1st, we're going to have a tour of Tahiti, the main island on the east side of the island. So we're going to join our guide and see what that's all about. The so-called Jurassic Coast, partly because it sort of looks like scenes out of the movie Jurassic Park. And then on the day after, we're going to be visiting the west coast of the island, which is with all of the things that there are to see. So there's no change to that from what's in your itinerary. And again, details of all what you need and so on for that, I will give you the evening before. So you're always going to be informed by me the evening before about what our exact departure time is in case there's any change, and anything that you might need along the way. So you can count on me to let you know all of those details for the next day. On the 3rd of November, of course, is time for us to embark on our ship, the Panorama 2. There she is there. So we are going to be sailing with about, we comprise about a quarter of the ship. So we're our own little group amongst other guests that could come from all parts of the world. So I think it's a nice opportunity to meet some other people. I love these small ship type adventures because it really gives you an opportunity to obviously interact with other members of Wheel and Anchor, but also the other people that are along for the ride on the ship. Not much to say about the ship. Obviously, you've gone through all of this stuff here. There's amenities that are provided if you do have your own requirements, like you use a special shampoo or soap or whatever it happens to be. Obviously, bring those along, but otherwise, everything you need is provided for. One of the things I didn't mention in the what to pack, I like to bring like one of those like camping towels. They don't really like you to take the towels off the ship, just because they tend to get lost or extra dirty or something like that. So if you want to bring a light, fast dry towel, I find they're handy, particularly if you're out. I mean, I'm personally like to sort of air dry, but some people like to just give themselves a wipe down if we're, as I say, if we're trekking around in a wet jungle, or if we're snorkeling or something like that. Keep that in mind. As I say, let's touch on a couple of the things. The excursions is obviously the big question that everybody's waiting for. And as I say, we've gotten confirmation of most of the excursions according to the new list earlier today. Those are going to be coming out to you within the next day or two. There are still a couple of excursions where there are not quite enough people signed up in order for those to happen. So the ship has informed us they expect that they will get more people signed up on board, because not everybody books their excursions in advance. A lot of them wait until they are actually on the cruise. And so, as I say, we're going to do our best to make sure that everything that you wanted to go on is going to be possible. So our first stop is going to be Moorea. And let me just see here if I have... don't have the list immediately available. So on the Moorea, we've got a 4x4 safari and island tour. So we're going to be there on a day on Moorea. We're going to be a day as well on Makatao and Tuamotu Islands. The visits here to the Tuamotu Islands, and again, the ship personnel have asked me to remind you that everything is subject to weather and sea conditions, because in many cases we are anchoring offshore, and so the wind and the swell has to be right for them to feel safe and confident that we can anchor there properly. I'm also informed that in the vast majority of cases, it's not a problem, but you just never know. You can never know what the weather is going to do. So we have some great excursions as well in Makatea with the the rock pools and the grotto. So we'll be on the island for a good chunk of the day. Rangiroa, of course, with the Blue Lagoon. I mean, I tell you, I can't wait to visit this beautiful place with you guys. So we've got some beautiful spots there. Also some opportunities for snorkeling and so on board the ship. So even if you don't go on an excursion, there's always the, to the extent that we're anchored somewhere, you can swim and snorkel off the boat, enjoy the beautiful scenery, or just go onshore, again, depending on exactly where it is that we are anchored and where we are going from. So we're going to visit as well Tikehau, the Pink Sand Island. There'll be definitely opportunity for snorkeling in here to enjoy this beautiful and unusual pink sand. We're going to go to Huahine, which is our Sacred Sites and Legendary Places tour that I believe is happening. And again, I will reconfirm, or I should say my Aura and our sales team will reconfirm all of the excursions within the next couple of days. Bora Bora hardly needs any introduction. There's some a snorkeling tour on there. I know that the Bora Bora by truck was one of the excursions that they weren't sure that they could confirm yet. So that's still a bit of a question mark, but we're, as I say, doing our best to see that we can get you on all the excursions that you wanted. And Taha, we as well have a 4x4 safari that is going ahead. So that's great news. And in all of these islands, as I say, there'll be a chance to snorkel and enjoy the different, there'll be so many shades of blue and green and seawater like you've never seen before. It's remarkable. Raiatea is one of the places that we'll see the marae. These are these rock sculptures and formations that came from the ancient Polynesian times. So we'll see those, and I know that these excursions are taking place, and as well as in Tetiaroa, the Birds Island, where we'll see some of these unique little flying fellas that. Yeah, that's about it. As I say, I didn't want to go into too great detail. We will give you the excursion confirmations as soon as possible. At the end of our trip on the 13th, we'll be disembarking at around 9 o'clock in the morning. In fact, I have to, because I'm flying back the other way, so I actually have to be at the airport already at 9 o'clock in the morning. So the likelihood is we'll be landing a little bit earlier that morning, and then we'll be transferred back to the hotel, or for that matter, we'll be transferring some of you to the back to the Intercontinental, where you'll have the opportunity to spend the day before catching a flight that goes out earlier in the evening. Again, you don't need to worry about all those details. We take care of all that. I will inform you of exactly the arrangements, what's going to happen when we arrive in Tahiti. So that is basically it. That's all I wanted to discuss. Of course, I want to know if you have any questions. And if for some reason you don't have, if you do have a question, please type it into the chat box, which is at the bottom of your screen, or the Q&A box. I don't see any questions yet. Which must mean that I've done a pretty good job of giving you the information you need for the trip. If you have any question that pops up into your mind, even 5 minutes from now, obviously just drop a note to either Paula or Barb, whoever it was that signed you up for this trip in the first place, and they will get back to you as soon as possible. Linda writes, I joined Kate, is the water drinkable? So there is drinking water provided on board the ship at all times. I don't generally drink the water from the system on any ship. My recollection is from the other variety ships is that they tell you it's potable. However, I don't recommend it. There will be drinking water stations. And so I generally recommend drinking, and believe me, I hate plastic, but I generally suggest to drink out of from the water stations, whether it's in the hotel or on board the ship. Dennis asked, is there laundry service on the ship? There is no laundry service on the ship, but I see here you mentioned, Dennis, that there's conflicting info in the documentation. But let me just check here, because I do not believe that there is laundry service available on the ship. But Dennis, I will double check that with my operations colleagues and with the ship. But it is there. Obviously, you can get laundry service while we're on land, but I guess the question is for when we're underway. So let me note that question, but I don't think so. So I promise I'll get back to you within 24 hours on that question. Good deal. Let's see. Any other questions? Otherwise, we're going to wrap up the webinar. And I can't wait to see you guys in Tahiti in 26 days' time. And I hope you have a fantastic trip over. And otherwise, as I say, please let us know if anything comes up between now and then. We want to make sure you have an amazing time and that this is one of the most memorable experiences that you ever have. So good. On that note, I will sign off, and I look forward to seeing you all in a few weeks' time in Tahiti. Have yourselves a great day, and thanks again for joining me today. Bye-bye.